If you're an entrepreneur looking to get those boundaries set with your clients and in your agreements, you are in the right place. Hello, everyone. Today we are breaking down what real boundaries look like in our businesses and why being flexible or relying on your internal mood and ideas in the moment aren't really the best successful way to maximize your revenue and, of course, prevent burnout. Hey everyone, this is Acacia, the CEO legal coach, and I am here live with all of you today. And I do have to say, do you like my Princess Leia look? I had fire alarm testing in my home today, and I'm just fresh back from Europe, which meant I had to find and scatter to get everything ready for this. And so we have my headphones as our microphone in an undisclosed location. But have no fear. As always, this is the Aligned Business Series. The Aligned Business Series, where we go live 3 times a week to answer your real life business questions and tell you real client stories. Like, what are other business owners going through out there? What are they facing? And most importantly, what are they doing to solve it? And this idea of boundaries is a really, really big one. I get this one a lot. I see it searched online a lot. And it's about time we had some answers. So that's what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear some real live client stories, what's been going on with other business owners, what we did to solve it. And then at the end, I'm going to give you a free guide, 100% free guide to download so you can do your own analysis for yourself and your business and decide what's the best way you want to proceed forward. But don't forget to find the chat button in your hey Mark, the in your online program because I will be answering your questions live. So let's get dive in here for a second because I'm gonna just start off with a truth bomb. All right, this is a big myth that I really am surprised that this is a big mindset shift between small and new entrepreneurs versus those who are established and successful. I promise you, those companies that are making 7 figures or more a year, their boundaries are not being set internally. It's not something that they're like, hey, this is what I want to say today. This is how I feel. That is not happening. Boundaries aren't just an internal thing, they are built into the business. They are not a mindset issue. They are a process and systematic, operational element to those bigger and better successful businesses, right? And I don't mean better as in better at, the ideas and the brilliance or passion. You're clearly set for success in what you're doing if you're asking these questions because it's time to let the system do the boundary work for you. And what does that look like? That's going to look like your contracts, as you'll see here in a second, your timelines, your deliverables, your pricings. They don't just enforce the boundaries for you because it, if you have something else that can communicate when you're not there, if you have something else that can remind your clients what's going on, if you have something that your client has agreed to, you now don't have to worry about hitting your tipping points before you step up and say something. You now don't have to worry, or am I cutting it off too early? Am I giving everything that was promised? Because absolutely everything was agreed to. And as you'll see here in a second, a lot of times small business owners, when they have a contract, they think they have set these boundaries. Oh, I've set the milestones, I've set the deliverables, I set the deadlines. If you have ever worried about stretching a timeline, a late payment. You're being nice. You overgive. You give something that wasn't necessarily agreed to, but it's a small ask. If your client can ask for anything, if your client can ghost you, if your client can come along and shift what's going on, if your client can ask for something you think is already done and they can reopen it, these are all examples of areas where boundaries are not systematically set. And so what ends up happening? Revenue loss, time loss, resentment, exhaustion, and burnout. These boundaries are what prevent burnout for you personally, but they are also what increase your revenue. So let me tell you a story about one of my clients. She was a solopreneur. She'd been in business for a number of years, I think about 10 years at that point. And she offered both coaching and design services. So she'd help people start their business, and then she'd help you design your website or create your logos and your marketing. And she had contracts for both of these. And she had sold to one of her clients, as she did many of them, a 3 month coaching uh, package, and then the website, the design, the other elements in there. And so she did everything right on paper. She had the milestones, she had the deadlines. There were terms for all of these things on in the paper. But what ended up happening? A few things started to go off track. The client would show up to all of those coaching calls, but she didn't always come prepared. She always had an excuse. "Oh, I couldn't decide. It was a crazy week. Oh, my boyfriend broke up with me." Or, "I can't decide. Can I get a few more mock-ups? I don't know which color I want." So, coaching became a little blended with overgiving in the design area. And then when the design parts weren't able to hit their milestones on time, well, she would end up giving more coaching calls to help make that happen. And so these little things throughout their time together ended up spending more time in calls, more time in prep, more time in deliverables, more time, more time, more time. And then she felt she had promised her client, well, a business that had a website and a logo and all these things, and her client was nowhere near done, was nowhere near deciding to be done when all of this 3 month package was up. And so she kept giving and giving and giving, trying to get her client over that finish line. It took another 9 months, 3 months plus 9 months. A year later, my client said, "That's it. I've hit my limit. I can't keep giving to you, client. I can't keep doing these things. You are exhausting me. I can't get to my other clients. I can't get to my other projects. I can't even get another client through the door because I'm so focused on trying to get you where I said I would take you." Right. And so what this ended up costing her was all this extra time lost, unpaid, right? All that was unpaid that she gave. And she actually ended up having to refund 80% because these boundaries weren't in the contract. What was in the contract? What she would deliver. That website never got done. So guess what? She had to give back the money for the website. The logo never got done. So guess what? She had to give all that money back, even though she was showing up. She was supporting. She was creating assets. She was coaching for almost a year. And she had walked away feeling exhausted, but also like she had failed her client, even though she had done everything right from her deliverables standpoint. And so this was an area that you could see that it wasn't a lack of professionalism. It wasn't a lack of care. It was not a lack of expertise or preparation. It's that she lacked boundaries that she could lean on when the project started to unravel. She expected herself to know where the boundary was. She expected herself to be able to communicate it and to be enforce it. And all of these things when she's already hit exhausted. So what this starts to tell us is that boundaries aren't about being too nice or unprofessional. And it's not about just having a contract that says what's included and here's the price and here's the deadlines. Because if you've ever heard me talk about my consulting clients, how many times does that scope just slowly creep? Or you deliver something and then the client comes back and wants it reopened, even though you're 4 steps down in the project. So they want to go back to step one, but you're on step four. So here's some signs that you're overgoing, right? So you keep hearing, "Hey, can I just ask for one more thing? One more email, one more call, one more sample, one more, one more, one more." And by the way, all of these that I'm going to go through right now, they are in the free guide. The free guide. I think the website's on the page, but I'm also going to give you the QR code here in a second. If you're the only one showing up on time or the only one showing up ready for your clients' calls, it's their business they're trying to start. It's their project. They came to you to get your expertise for, yet somehow they're not ready to be done, even though you are. If you've ever delayed or avoided sending an invoice or follow up information, if you have ever had to follow up more than twice, these are all signs of areas where we can get your contracts and your systems to set you up for success. This also happens whenever you're rescheduling or moving your calendar around. If you don't feel in charge of your calendar, this is a great area where you might need a boundary. If you feel responsible for the results, even though the client is responsible for the results, that's another area. Uh, and also, if you ever downplay how much time and resources things take. Oh, it's just one more sample. Just it only cost me like $5. No, that costs you the time. It costs you the materials. It costs you the resources. All of that adds up, and every time we give and give and give without something of value in reciprocation, we are overgiving. That's a loss of time, loss of energy, loss of your growth as a business. You can't get another client through the door if you're still on the client you had yesterday. You risk your reputation. You really, really do, because you risk not bringing your best, but you also risk your clients not feeling that they have all the boundaries they need to know how do they proceed. The biggest things that go wrong in businesses and reviews is when you think one thing and your client thinks another. The lack of boundary, because if there's clarity in communication, aka the boundary is set and agreed to in your contract, there isn't uncertainty. There isn't doubt. There is a set and agreed to expectation for everything, for both parties along the way. But also, like we talked about, you start to doubt yourself as an entrepreneur, you start to doubt yourself as a leader, and your revenue, your passion. It all slowly drains simply because the boundaries weren't set. So, okay, we're talking about the boundaries. What do you do? How do you do it? When you do it, here it is. Okay, I'm gonna go through 6 things right now. Oh, let me get that guide up and start getting your questions. And I have seen a few come in. I have them. I see them there. So here it is. If you want to get that guide, the 7 signs you're overgiving free guide, it's right here. That guide is going to walk you through 7 signs, how they're affecting your revenue, ways to kind of like audit your own business, see if it's something that's impacting you, and then give you additional resources like additional videos, the exact sentences you can use, all the type of stuff is in that guide. So, how to set boundaries? First, decide what's included and what's not before you start the work. So many times, again, it's like the coaching and the consulting clients, like, oh, this is what's included. These are the milestones. Okay, where's the boundary? When are we too far? We need to set those clearly. They're usually done with what is called a scope creep clause. Okay. So you need to know what you're delivering, what your time is worth, and what that client is responsible for. You are not the only, just because they're paying you does not mean you're the only one with obligations here. Your client needs to show up too. Let's keep them in line and tell them what you need from them to be successful for them. Help them help you be successful so the whole project gets finished on time the way you want. Which brings me to number 2. Put time limits and checkpoints into every single project, even when you onboard them. And timelines aren't just about when you deliver things. It's when you need feedback back. It's when you need the samples back or their files, whatever you need from them. Make it very clear every single step of the way how much time they have to get that back to you, and what happens. What happens if they don't? Because oh, it took them. I call it the hurry up and wait. They demand things from you right here, right now. You send it to them, and then you sit there and wait to get feedback from them. You're working on their timeline, not on a shared timeline. We want a shared timeline. So it's very, very important. Timelines and checkpoints usually done with an acceptance clause. Okay. Third, if you're treat just one more thing, one more request. Hey, one more of this, like a new request. Okay. If it was not included, it's a new request. If they would have asked you for 4 samples at the start and that would have cost an extra $100, they don't suddenly get $100 off because they're asking for it mid project. One more thing is exactly that. It's one more thing. It is a new request, not a favor. Okay, so this is usually done with a scope creep clause. So if something was not part of that original scope, it deserves a decision of value exchange. Not a problem. Happy to go above and beyond for you, client, but here's how I'm going to need you to go above and beyond for me, above and beyond the price point, above and beyond the timeline, whatever it was. Okay, so we want to have these things ahead of time. Number four, don't wait until you're exhausted or frustrated or angry to enforce a boundary. Don't wait till you're exhausted and frustrated to communicate a boundary. If you have properly put the boundaries up front with the acceptance clauses, with the scope creep clauses, with the anti-ghosting clauses, all of those things, the client already knows where the boundary is and what happens when they cross it or when they fail to meet it. And now your only job when you are frustrated, exhausted, and tired is to remind them, client, this is what we agreed to. Per the agreement, this is what happens next. Per the agreement, if I don't hear back from you by Friday, this is what happens, right? So don't wait until you're frustrated. Know that it's already been communicated and set and agreed to by the client and yourself right up front when everything was going great. So know the only thing on your list to do is to remind them kindly and professionally. You don't need to do all the work now. Number five. Five is right here with that. Let the contracts do that work. Let the contracts carry your boundaries. Decide what you want to communicate in your onboarding, maybe the most common things, but you don't need to sit there and say every single thing up front. You also, because nobody wants to listen to it, in the event that the air temperature is 78 degrees instead of 79 degrees, you don't have time for that with every client. But your contract can be set once and used over and over and over again. That's one of the powerful things about the boundaries is that the contract can do all of this heavy lifting for you. It's done up front. You only have to set it once because now you're not the one holding the line. Your systems, your agreements, your onboarding do all of that heavy lifting for you. So you get to stay doing the fun part, the parts you love, the creativity, the expertise, and the delivery of your deliverables, the way you love to do that. So don't rely on you internally. Let your systems, your contracts particularly do the work for you. And last step here before we get into your Q&A is if you've already overgiven in your business, that's okay. Congratulate yourself for finding your boundary, for observing your boundary, and now honoring your boundary, right? Reset, put the boundaries in place in your agreement. Get the guide on the screen right now, the seven signs you're overgiving, so you can put the boundary in place so it doesn't happen again. Don't wait until the next client. You don't have to throw away your relationship with yourself, with your business, or any of your clients, or worry. No, because that's what those 7 and 8 figure businesses and bigger have out there. They are not relying on their mood and their situations day to day to decide what is a boundary and where the boundaries are for their internal sanity, for their revenue growth, and for the success of the business. All right, I see the questions coming in, so let's get to these. Yes, the guide does have it's a pretty big guide actually. Because there's some mythbusters, 7 signs for every single one of the signs. It's also going to show you the root causes of those things, how it might be impacting your revenue, so you can decide if it's something that applies to the way you're doing business or not. It's also going to have links to videos with solutions. It's going to give you some links to statements, lines, quotes you can use, all that type of stuff. So it's a pretty thorough guide in there. Yep. Okay, so questions. What if I already said yes to something outside the scope with one of my clients? Can I walk it back? One of the big things about boundaries is honoring what we've promised to do and holding our clients to honoring what they've promised to do. If you have promised to do something, it's best in your business, your reputation, your energetic self to honor that. Now, If there's a boundary that can be put on that, hey, yes, I said I would support you with extra, customer service. Just want to clarify that usually means about 30 days extra service, right? Not unlimited, not in perpetuity, that type of thing. So you can put a boundary on it, but it's always just good business and good for the soul to honor our promises, but to do our best to do them in ways that are soul filling, right? To do that. Um, but if you're mid-project and you're starting to see, hey, they keep asking for more, go ahead and put that boundary. Hey, we've only agreed to 50 days of software updates or something. You can now start to communicate the boundaries along the way. But if you've already agreed to something, it's just good business to honor what we've promised, whether that's written or verbal. What if the client keeps missing deadlines? Do I just wait? Okay. So this is one that we get a lot in service-based businesses, whether it's coaching, design work, consulting, so on. What if the client keeps missing their deadlines? What do you do? Your contract should have a consequence. Client, if I don't hear back from you within 7 days, I get to assume it's approved. I get to have an extra 2 weeks to complete the next phase. There's a consequence. Actions and inactions, right? Because what if they ghost you? Have outcomes that impact the project. And so when we communicate those, that's usually done by an acceptance clause. An acceptance clause is and you'll have those are in the guide, by the way. The that communicates that. So you shouldn't, if your client keeps missing deadlines, well then they're the ones who are suffering their consequences. Sometimes I have ones with my clients that, like, if I don't get payment by this date, this contract is terminated. Right. So then I'm like, I now don't have to worry about chasing my clients down. Hey, if you wanted to work with me, now's your window. Because I usually set up clients on a quarterly basis. Most of my projects are either 30-day or 3 month with my clients. And so I don't want to keep chasing you down, chasing you down, chasing you down. And then suddenly I've got 24 clients in Q4. I I need to keep those boundaries. That spot, I'll hold it for you. It's yours. You signed up, but that does mean payment needs to be within these timelines. So that's usually what I would say is if they keep missing deadlines, try to communicate the impact of that. Because 9 out of 10 times they're not missing deadlines to be malicious. Something just got deprioritized, right? Especially if they've paid you. They just got deprioritized somehow, or they don't realize they're holding up something that you need from them. So that's what I would do is just tell them, hey, this is what happens. Let's see. Next question. Isn't it better to be flexible with clients, especially when you're growing? Okay. There's flexibility and then there's overgiving. Flexibility is saying, hey, our appointments are scheduled every Friday at 10 a.m. If you need a different time, please let me know at least 24 hours in advance. Otherwise, there will be a no show fee. Okay, that's giving them flexibility. You have 24 hours to tell me, but I'm not going to just let you no show on me, cancel on me last minute, and so on. So there's this idea of flexibility versus sustainability. When does your energy start to be depleted? When does your revenue become depleted? A business is a value exchange. Value exchange, my time, my expertise, my deliverables, my resources in exchange for usually payment from the client. And so, anytime any of those things that are important to the lifeline of my business get overstretched, I am overstretching myself as well as my business's lifeline. It's really important that when we want to grow our businesses to have those solid foundations. Like the example I gave, if all of my clients, uh, great, I can set up, 10 clients a quarter. I don't hold that many clients. I only hold like 4 to 6, but then they all delay and suddenly I've got 24 clients in Q4. Well, that wasn't right for me. That's not being flexible. That's breaking my sustainability. I can't sustain that. I also don't have revenue the other 3 quarters. So the idea of flexibility versus sustainability. Ask yourself internally, like, when do I start to feel depleted? When does this start to feel exhausting to you? When does it start to misrepresent your timeline? The story we gave today, a 3 month coaching package suddenly became 9 extra months. Okay, well, that's 9 extra months of not paid work that she could have had 3 other sets of clients come through the door. So, flexibility versus sustainability. When does it start to break your business model, your business resources, your bottom line, but most importantly, you? We need you at your best for success. Do I need to update my whole contract to start setting better boundaries? No, 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 no. I will say bigger companies have custom contracts. They have custom contracts because it makes them more money. There is an ROI. There is an ROI the more you can customize your contracts. But when you're going from that startup into building that sustainability in your business, you may not be ready to make that full investment yet, or there's still some growing phases. So what I would do is I would just do the pieces along the way. This is what I do with clients a lot is right now, just we're talking boundaries, right? So anti-ghosting clauses, acceptance clauses, some scope creep clauses, those right there are already going to empower you. That's not redoing the whole contract. That's just getting some things in there that are going to build a better foundation from you and make sure you get that value exchange. When you start to get overgive, you get something back for it that helps your business. So you don't need to do the whole contract at once. You also can, once you learn what a scope creep clause is, you can just make more of your own. Make more and more of your own. Like I have a playbook that's what it's designed to do. It gives you much to go, just copy paste, or you can write your own. So then as you find a new boundary, you're like, oh, it's probably time I best did something. You can just throw that in there yourself. You don't need a lawyer for these. These are part of your business. You do not need a lawyer for these. Yeah, of course, always welcome to get a lawyer. Enforcing them is always good to have that legal input, but you don't need that. It's just like you can set your own project dates, milestones, pricing. Boundaries are part of that. You can do this. What is the difference between a policy and a boundary? Aha. Okay. Policies are how you go about things. This is our boundaries in communication versus what has been agreed to. So there's a difference between saying, I give you 30 days extra customer support versus how I'm going to give you those 30 days of extra support. Policy is the how you go about it. It's kind of like your checklist or your playbook as you're doing something. But the boundary is agreed to and enforceable. When it's in your contract, particularly, it's enforceable. Your client has agreed to it. Everyone said yes, but you can now enforce it if you want to. Where policies are a little bit more give and take, a little bit more flexibility as you're going about something, but the boundaries are clearly set. You can choose to give an exception to them, but it's there as officially set. This is what's agreed to. This is what's been stated. This is enforceable in court if we ever got there. Very rarely to ever get to that point, but it's that level of it's actually a signed contract. So that would be the difference between the two. All right, one more question I thought I saw. Where is it? What if setting firmer boundaries costs me the client? Good. You don't want clients that are going to drain you. You don't want clients. Like, think of some of the biggest brands that you love. They probably have competitors that you don't love. Why do you love the ones you love? You love what they stand for. You love how they do business. You love their deliverable. And you're willing to work within their way of doing things because you love that. The right clients will work the way you want to work. You have the right to set up your business and work the way you want to work. And if the client is not going to fit into that space, they weren't the right clients to begin with. You don't want the clients that get 9 months of extra work from you and still get 80% refund. That's not who you're looking to work with. You want to work with people that want to work with you the way you want to work together. So, a firmer boundary is never going to cost you the right client. And because it gives your clients safety, they know what to expect, they know what's expected of them in the value exchange. 9 out of 10 times it actually leads to better customer relationships, not losing clients. I've never had somebody lose a client over that. Nope. All right, all. This has been Acacia, the CEO legal coach. Don't forget to get that free guide that's on the screen there, the overgiving guide. And I will see you all later this week as we continue to talk about enforcing and setting boundaries and how. What's up next?